Hello everyone, Ron again, and in this video we're going to talk about timing, tempo, and the relative time value of different notes. 3 different types of notes in particular: quarter notes, eighth notes, and 16th notes. So to explain this, I'm going to start by explaining what the tempo means. Now the reason for this video is because someone I know asked me, how do I create the drum rhythms that are in my beats? And I said, well, I played on the drum line of Passaic High School Marching Band. Therefore, I have a working knowledge of music theory. In this case, timing, tempo, and subdivision. So I'm going to translate that idea into FL Studio so it will make sense to someone who wants to make the connection and know something about reading music, and to expand upon how you write a drum beat, some of the things I consider. So this is the first video about that. So if you look up here at the top of FL Studio, you notice that there is a tempo, and that's 110 beats per minute. Now let's pretend that it says 60. The tempo gives you the length of time that one quarter note takes. And how do you calculate this? While I was explaining reverb, I mentioned that you could calculate the length of time that a 16th note would take, which makes sense when you think about it, right? Because time can be measured. So let's pretend that the tempo was 60. If there are 60 beats in 1 minute, and each beat is a quarter note, and there are 60,000 milliseconds in 1 minute, then you would divide 60,000 milliseconds in a minute by 60 beats per minute, and you would arrive that each beat is worth 1,000 milliseconds, or 1 second. So then you could further divide that, because let's say if you take a quarter note, which I have represented here. Quarter notes in music, we count them as 1, 2, 3, 4. So you think of, when you listen to Spanish music, what the bass drum does. You know, it's just the way you would tap your foot. If you were tapping your foot according to a song without dancing, you were just standing in place. Those are quarter notes. And when they're written out, they usually look like the letter D. So a quarter note is, if you think about 4/4 time, which is the next thing to talk about, the time signature. If you were reading music, you would see the time signature somewhere on the piece, and most commonly the time signature is 4/4. So the numerator, or the top number, 4, would mean the number of beats per measure. So as you can see here, these quarter notes, there are 4 of them. So the numerator would be 4. The denominator, or the bottom number, tells you which type of beat is considered to be one beat throughout the piece. So if the bottom number is 4, then it's quarter notes. So the easiest way to understand this is to take the 4 that's on top and make it a 1, and then you have 1/4, which is a quarter. So you're counting in quarter notes. If it was 4/8, it would mean that there are 4 beats per measure, but those 4 beats are eighth notes. So that would mean that would translate as 2 quarter notes. Because a quarter note is twice the length of an eighth note. So if you think about it from the standpoint of there are 4 beats per measure and they are all quarter notes, then it makes sense because you have 1, 2, 3, 4, and each of those takes up a quarter of the measure. You know, these are actually drawn as eighth notes, but they're drawn in the place of quarter notes. They will have to last the full value of a quarter note like that, but it's just simpler for visual representation that they be this way. So when you talk about an eighth notes are twice as fast as quarter notes, and 16th notes are twice as fast as eighth notes. So you're going to notice a pattern here, right? When you subdivide and say you're dividing by 2, honestly, because if you think about it, 1/4 divided by 2 is 1/8, and 1/8 divided by 2 is 1/16, because it would be times 1/2. Not a math lesson, but you know, that's the idea. So you would count quarter notes as 1, 2, 3, 4. But it's good to know how to count other subdivisions of notes, right? So eighth notes are 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. 16th notes on drumline, we counted them as 1 eanda, 2 eanda, 3 eanda, 4 eanda. So when learning on drumline, we counted quarter notes as 1, 2, 3, 4. We counted eighth notes as 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. We counted 16th notes as 1 eanda, 2 eanda, 3 eanda, 4 eanda. And these silly words are so that you can subdivide the beat. So you have a vocal way to represent not just what you want to play, but also how to understand sort of what you're reading right here, right? So that's what this will read. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 eanda, 2 eanda, 3 eanda, 4 eanda. And then there's nothing in there, so that's where it would end. So the importance of this is that by making certain instruments play quarter notes or eighth notes, for example, they keep time for other things that are more ambient. So there are things like that. But also, you can do what you call an accent by making one or more notes louder. And those notes can provide another rhythm on top of like a 16th rhythm. You most commonly hear that with hi-hats. Usually, they're not just 16th notes anymore. They're sped up, so they're like 16th note triplets, which is a topic for another video because this is a basic understanding. You can change the pitch of them, for example, and you can create different rhythms in all different types of ways. So I felt like that would be helpful because that is actually a good question. Like, how do you decide what drum rhythm you're going to play? It's like, of course. I mean, there are things like knowing the genre. You don't have to know this stuff. You could just listen to a bunch of music and see what others do. But it helps from the standpoint of planning it out. When you want to have a certain feel, you can know why it feels the way it does and how to achieve that with different notes. So for fun, I did some drumming and I'm going to include that in this video someplace. But this is a simple lesson and I hope that you gained something from watching this video. And if you stuck around to the end, then I thank you. Like, comment, sub. And as always, have an awesome day. Peace.